This is an interesting angle to film a video. Closing my door, and I'll tell you why. One second while I mute this microphone here. I'm filming this way because this video is not about showing you which tool to use, but showing you that the options exist to make music, whether you use an iPad, I'm filming with the iPhone or whatever you use, and the computer. So here's a thought, and I'm gonna roll this back just a little bit. When it comes to making music, you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And what I mean by that is, if you're a sample-based artist and you just need something simple to work on, Koala can do it. Okay, Koala can do it. You have Beatmaker 3 here can do it. Any of these programs can get you through and help you to make music. Of course, there's other things and tools in iOS as well as on desktop that you can use. But if you struggle with finishing music on iOS, in other words, I struggled. I used to be able to I could get so far with this, but then I would have to go to AUM, and I would have to I would have to use Beatmaker 3 and then use other plugins with that and try to figure out the way I was going to work. It got to be taxing for me to do this whole jump around modular thing to where I didn't want to use it at all, if that makes sense. So Drumbo was kind of like a solution to getting in and sampling, and then yet the strength lied in that you had to use the sequencer. So if you didn't like sequencing stuff, then Drumbo didn't work. For years, I wouldn't even use it because I was totally against sequencing. Beatmaker 3 has its quirks, but it was probably the most complete tool that I used. AUM was a mixer, so it was good for mixing the tracks or using instruments into Koala or another device, whichever one you wanted to use. But again, it became more of the modular workflow. And I still love it to this day. I think it's good to use. But I ask myself every time I get in it, am I going to finish this song? I'll start a song, I'll make a loop. I might even get 4 or 5 loops going. But then I realize I'm not a loop-based artist and I don't really want to finish the music because that's not how I work. See, I begin to understand what my strengths and weaknesses were with devices, which made me not want to work so much in iOS. To this day, what I primarily do in iOS is I'll go in and use and get a song started. In Koala, I'll chop up some samples or whatever I'm going to use, maybe stretch them, maybe do different things with them to try to see if I can get some inspiration from them. And then I send them right over to the desktop. Now, when I bought gear, what I found was I was doing the same thing. I would take a piece of gear like the P6 or even the MPC. When I had the SP404, I did the same thing. I would start a song in there and then I would take it. I think I almost finished one song in the SP, like completely in the SP, but I rarely did. I mean, I can make a beat like a dime a dozen. That's not hard to do. I meant like finish a song, like start to finish. So I would end up, again, sending it over to here. And I do the same thing when I was here. So that led me to understand myself, right? My strength was, sure, I could create something. But my weakness was I never finished anything. So it wasn't until I just adopted the workflow of, you know what, I'm just getting on a DAW and doing it in the DAW that I actually learned this is where I need to be. This is home, right? This is the place. You have to learn what is your strength and weakness. For some people, they hate working in a DAW. They're not creative in that. So they need to start somewhere else, like with the Move or with the P6 or whatever. Now, by the way, the P6 is coming back, and primarily because I love the sound of it. So the P6 will be back in a day or two. You'll see it again on this channel. However, what I'm saying is that it's not going to be the primary tool that gets me to finish music. It is a tool on the side that I can use, similar to a Koala or something like that, to get started on it. But I know that I'm going to come back to Ableton and finish. So if I bank everything on, if I can only have one device, well, then it's got to be the computer. Now, of course, the controllers are nice and they help you to have a tactile thing to play, and I need that kind of for piano because I don't like playing on a screen. I do not have fun drumming on this thing, or I mean, triggering something is one thing, but trying to drum on a screen is just not fun, in my opinion. You need something. If there was a layover that fit this, where you could press something, sure. I mean, I might be more into it, but just tapping on glass has not ever been my thing. Okay, so the next thing is, do the instruments in the device you're using inspire you? The MPC did not inspire me that way with the instruments. I mean, the sampler was amazing. The sequencer is phenomenal in the MPC. Those were the things I loved about it. But I'm not a sample-based artist. I will incorporate samples, but I'm not primarily a sample-based artist, so it didn't inspire me to finish any music in it. Now, the P6 is a sampler tool. However, I do like the sample rate in it, the stretching of it, the sound of it. Whatever that sound that comes out of that little machine, it just intrigues me more than even the SP404 Mark II. Not that the SP404 Mark II is bad. It's just that whatever they did to this sound, it inspired me to use it. The same thing goes for the PO33. Never liked the PO33 ever until I heard the sound that came out of that little device, and I thought to myself, that's the one, right? I still don't have one. I don't really need it. I mean, it is a phenomenal sound, though. Don't get it twisted. It really is. But it's not moving enough to hold on to it. Even though it's only like $100, you probably could get one used somewhere for around $50. You know, if I got one now, it would be just to pass the audio through it, and that would be pretty much it. Because I just like the sound. Again, you need to be inspired. You need to be inspired by the instruments you use. You need to be inspired by the sound of the instruments. More than the instrument itself is the sound that it produces. The sound is what you're aiming for. The workflow is second to the sound, right? I mean, because obviously you can use anything and adjust the workflow of how you use it. But the sound is crucial. And when I say sound, I mean what comes out of it. Not that these all are digital solutions to making music. I mean, most of the things we use nowadays are digital to some degree. So we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the way it sounds when that comes out of it. Okay. So learn yourself. That's the point of this video. Learn who you are and what you're about. Take the tools that you have and work within it. If you don't have the tools that you feel are the most are the best for your workflow and your vibe, then get those tools and use those tools, right? So for me, it's always going to be right now, unless something changes, Ableton. Ableton moves me. Ableton gives me the things I need. But I don't even use Ableton the way most people do. I'm not using it in the session view the way people typically use Ableton. For me, it's about the arranger. The arranger, the ability to be able to chop samples, stretch samples, the way I like to do it. And I have my template set up. My template gets me where I need to go quicker. So I'm not spending a lot of time, as people think, actually building and stuff like that. I have my bass, my Trillium bass. I have a keys section. I have a kick, snare, and hi-hat track already separated. I don't have to go explode. I don't have to go, I just drum. I'm not even a drummer. So I do everything separate anyway. So I might as well just have it ready for me. You know, if I do decide to drum something in, I can use the QWERTY keyboard to do it. Or in this particular case, now that I have the launch key, I can just use the launch key to drum it in off of that. So that works for me really well. Again, find what works for you really well. For portability, the laptop is very portable in my opinion. And you have speakers on both sides. And you have the QWERTY to play your notes in if you need to play melody. I've played, actually, it's funny, on my album, if you listen to any of my music on Bandcamp or Spotify, if you go on there, some of those tracks on there were made using just this QWERTY keyboard and Ableton. So some of those tracks that sound, like on my cinematic album were all made right here on this, using Harmony Bloom or using this QWERTY keyboard to play in notes or whatever the case may be. So don't think that you can't do it just because, somebody's showing you a cool device they got, right? This device I bought here was supposed to be for Koala to give me a tactile feel. Unfortunately, the dev did not. I asked him if he would, change certain things to make it more fluid. And because he hasn't and hadn't responded, I can't even recommend that product anymore because it doesn't work in the way I would use it. So I just don't even touch it, right? It just sits there on the desk, and unfortunately it's just become a paperweight. So buying devices doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make you make music. Sometimes it does. For some people, it will move them. Some people, it doesn't. So again, know yourself and what you like. All right, that's the end of this video. Just wanted to put that out there. I've seen some videos where people get gassed on certain gear pieces. That's cool and all, but if it doesn't move you to make music, it's just going to become a paperweight on your desk. So don't get an item just to become a paperweight. Get items that you actually feel you'll use. There is always, and I know I say this and I say it with truthfulness, a return policy that exists on most devices that you buy these days. Usually it's 30 to 45 days. Take advantage of it. It's a fair thing because we don't have stores that have all the gear half the time you buy. So try it out for 25 days. And if by the 25th day, you don't find yourself moved to make music on it, then send that mess back, right? Don't be afraid. And people should get over that whole thought of you shouldn't send stuff back. No, you should, because you shouldn't collect stuff that you're not going to use. That's really what you shouldn't do. And it's your hard-earned money most of the time that you're spending. These people aren't giving these items out for free to most people. The average person like myself and the others included are not getting them for free. So we don't have, unless you're rich and got it like that, money ain't growing on trees and they ain't handing that stuff out for free. So don't blow your money spending it on stuff that you're really not going to use. Get something that you're going to use. If a computer is your way of working, Fruity Loops, whatever, get Fruity Loops and get the computer and then roll with that and do that for a few years. Then if you're inspired to do something else and you need a different way to work, then add to your workflow, whatever you're going to add. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Again, don't get something just because I say I like it. Get it because you really think it's going to work for you, and know yourself. Learn who you are and how you work. I'm out.